So the phrase early access roguelite FPS usually means lower your expectations. Shoebox levels, floaty gunplay, a roadmap that's bat country. But Deadzone Rogue surprised me, because it works. The gunplay is tight, the progression loop is clean, and it's fun now. Not after 20 hours, not wait for 1.0, now. So let's break down what this game gets right, where it needs some more love, and why, for $20 at the time of this record, this might be one of the more quietly competent shooters on Steam. If you're new here, hi, I'm Squid. I cover action and FPS games without the fluff to pad for watch time. Maximum meaningful info, minimum reaction faces. Let's start with what you'll feel first, the shooting. The weapons in Deadzone Rogue are snappy and deliberate. There's real impact behind shots, a good sense of weight, and iron sight responsiveness that feels dialed in. Weapons behave how you'd expect, hits land with satisfying feedback, and there's no float or disconnect between your aim and what gets new holes. There's a crisp rhythm to encounters. It's fast, but not frenetic. You're rewarded for being aggressive without feeling like you're being forced into a speedrun. And importantly, the geometry respects your skill. You can thread shots through tiny gaps between pipes or walls, use ledges to angle precise shots, and cut corners with real intent, not hope. And cleanly engage without worrying about bullets bouncing off of invisible edges, where in a market full of FPS games shots tend to disappear into invisible wall gunk, this stands out. A good roguelite isn't just about improving between runs. It's about building interesting runs too. And Deadzone Rogue handles both. You've got meta progression, where you don't need to grind 400 runs just to upgrade your starting health bar from wet paper to damp cardboard. Yes, you do get some incremental stat improvements at first, which is perhaps a bit uninspired. Basic stuff like a few extra hit points, percent weapon damage, or crit. But as you progress to the higher zones, the upgrade tree opens up in meaningful ways that demand purposeful thought within the economy. And on an intra-run basis, you have upgrades that matter. Augments, item drops, weapon modifiers that meaningfully shift how each run plays. And these aren't just plus 3% crit cards, they're playstyle pivots. And when paired with gear pickups, they give each run a sense of evolution and choice. It's the kind of progression that respects your time without handing you an I win button. Except maybe for the companion bots. Those things are OP. Anytime you get an option to share aggro in a roguelite, that'll preserve your HP and make runs far easier. But best of all, you'll feel stronger every run. Not just in a now the enemies are easier kind of way, but in a I can see the lines between the systems kind of way. Okay, let's talk story and setting. Look, nobody comes to a roguelite shooter for the plot, but Deadzone Rogue does give you just enough context to justify the aesthetic and why you're explodinating all the things. You wake up from a stasis tube to a ship full of malfunctioning tech, biomechanical freaks, a rogue AI that seems hell-bent on eradicating all the crew, and heavily armed bad decisions. It's not going to win a Hugo Award. There's few cutscenes, no earth-shattering dramatic twists that I've seen so far, no lore books tucked behind boxes. It's just a setting that knows what it's here for. Atmosphere and texture, not narrative heavy lifting. And honestly, that's fine. This isn't Disco Elysium. It's a game about shooting things that are trying very hard to perforate you in new and exciting ways. So combat in Deadzone Rogue isn't just run in and spray. Each room starts you in stealth. It's not true invisibility, but a pre-alert phase where your enemies are idle until your first action. That small detail gives you space to plan. Do you open with a precision headshot, trigger an explosive barrel, or quietly reposition for line of sight advantage before you commit? This setup phase gives each encounter an edge of tactical clarity. You're not getting mobbed from frame one. You get to choose the tempo of initiation, which is rare for a game and genre that otherwise lean into movement and aggression. Enemy design walks a nice line. Ranged enemies will pin you down, melee units will pressure you up close, hazard zone mobs change your movement priorities mid-fight as you get to play the floor is lava the home game. It feels both proactive and reactive without being random. There's decent variety already. Thanks to the May 2nd update, we've now got new mission variants like a second uniform chaos, where each room stacks enemy types in themed clusters. It's subtle, but it forces you to switch tactics more than just the usual shoot until the room stops screaming. There's the occasional mini-boss and section boss encounter. These are larger, more resilient units with altered behavior patterns, AoE pressure, and unique mechanics. I mean, yeah, they're not on the level of cinematic campaign final bosses, but they do a solid job of breaking up the rhythm and demanding a bit more from your loadout, movement, and thinking skills. Best of luck with that last one. The AI is generally competent. I mean, occasionally one will go on break and forget you're there, but it's rare. And importantly, it's not annoying or game-breaking when it happens. It's just slightly goofy. I mean, if the worst thing I can say is one time a larger spider bot started jumping around on loop, we're doing okay for early access. Okay, let's talk technicals. Because you'd expect a game like this to have some jank. Surprise, it's shockingly smooth. On a high-end system, 7800X3D, RTX 4090, max settings except for motion blur, I'm holding 90 plus FPS consistently, even while recording. No shader stutter, no weird hitching. Yes, there's a moment of stutter during elevators that pose as loading screens, but never during firefights. And I've not crashed at all in the time I've spent with the game. And in a post-Unreal 5 world where every new game feels like a benchmark test disguised as a trailer, this is genuinely refreshing. Art direction leans clean sci-fi. You've got sharp lines, modular corridors. It's a bit of that gunmetal hallway aesthetic, but with just enough variety to keep it from blending into white noise. I mean, it's not winning any art awards, but it's also not making me squint and wonder if my monitor's dying. So we're good. The UI is readable without being obtrusive, menus are functional, hit feedback is solid, and that baseline of "it works" means you can focus on the core gameplay loop, which, again, is fast, rewarding, and stable. The May 2nd update helped this out even more, which added offline single-player mode, because always online single-player is a blight on the industry. Co-op respawns are now smarter, syncing at exit doors, better spawn safety, improved netcode. There's meaningful weapon and ability rebalancing, and multiple soft blocks and animation bugs are fixed. For an early access title, this is one of the better support cycles I've seen. It's timely, focused, and actually impactful. And considering the dev's history of questionable staying power with other titles, this seems heartening. What Deadzone Rogue nails, beyond the raw shooting, is its sense of momentum. You drop into a mission, move room to room through corridors and kill zones, loot augments, swap gear, and try to survive until completion. Runs are short enough to feel digestible, but long enough to justify a loadout arc. Gear drops are meaningful, and the more you experiment with upgrades and different combinations of gear, the more you start to see viable builds that actually feel different, and not just numerically stronger. There's a loop here that feels good even when you lose, and that's rare. As for value for money, for $20, Deadzone Rogue is punching well above its weight. You've got meaningful progression across multiple runs, multiple weapons with distinct behavior curves, real mechanical depth as systems unlock. Sure, it's not the deepest roguelite in the world. You're not getting Slay the Spire, deck building complexity, or Binding of Isaac chaos. But what you do get is a shooter that feels good every time you boot it up, respects your time, and doesn't force you into 30 hours of grinding before the game starts or gets good. And that's more than I can say for some $60 plus titles that have spent 3 years in 1.0. Now, it's not perfect. No game is. The AI, while competent, still has moments of confusion. Difficulty spikes can feel sudden, especially early on when you have minimal upgrades unlocked. Meta progression could potentially use a little bit more flavor and excitement, and visually, the environments could possibly use a bit more distinctive flair. Right now, you get a lot of corridors and muted palettes. I mean, it's clean, but not especially memorable. But none of that breaks the experience. These are polish items, not structural weaknesses. And with the dev team already responding to player feedback in significant patches, it's reasonable to expect that most of these will improve over time. Deadzone Rogue is the kind of early access game that doesn't ask for excuses. It's already fun, it already works, and it already respects your time. If you're looking for a fast, clean FPS with a decent degree of roguelite depth, tight gunplay, smart geometry, and progression that doesn't treat you like a spreadsheet, you could do a lot worse for $20. In fact, you're probably already doing worse with something in your Steam backlog. No hype, no nonsense. It's just a solid game that's flying under the radar right now. And honestly, that's the kind of rarity you don't ignore. You download it. If you found this useful, hit the YouTube buttons, do the sub, like, share thing. It'll satiate the algorithm and help more people see grounded reviews with actual detail and no rage bait. I've been Bald Squid. I'll see you next time.